got a claw clip finally, and I think maybe my ends are just too dead because like I had to wrap my hair up a shit ton of times because it's kind of long to get like a tail that didn't look super long. It's not giving what it's supposed to, so I think we're just gonna end up just with it down. I try to do something cute and different and it just doesn't work. This is why I can't be trendy. So anyways, I wanted to talk today about books that emotionally destroyed me because I read a book last weekend that did a number on me. My face was puffy the next morning when I woke up because I had cried so hard. And I'm like, I need to talk about this book ASAP. I thought I also had my top 10 of 2022 kind of like locked in. I'm like, they might change places a little bit depending on my mood, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure I have my top 10 reads of this year. This book said, nope, top of the list. So I wanted to talk about it today, but here's the thing with this video, because I have a lot of books here and they all have one thing in common, which is that they made me cry. That had to be a qualifier. I had to have actual tears coming out of my face to get it on this list. It had to emotionally destroy me, or it had to have me like so like gut punched, like holding my breath reading it, that it like really pulled a visceral emotional reaction out of me, okay? So here's the thing. Some of these books on this list have happily ever afters. Some of them do not. Some of them are just not traditional HEAs. So I'm not even going to preface that these are all romances, because here's the thing. If it is a romance, it has to have a traditional HEA. That's just like the true definition of a romance. I'm not going to argue that. And some of these don't fit that mold. So some of these technically I cannot classify as a romance. But here's the thing with them. I am not going to say what ones have an HEA and what ones don't, because me personally as a reader, I love going into a book not knowing what's going to happen at the end. I mean, when you pick up a romance, you know that it's going to have an HEA. Some of these I picked up thinking that they were a romance and they did not end up having an HEA. And I love that emotional destruction. I love that surprise. I love not being spoiled about that. I love going on the journey. I am in for mass emotional destruction on these books. So here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you which ones have an HEA and which ones don't. All I'm just going to preface is that an HEA is not guaranteed in all of the books that I'm going to talk about today. Some of them will, some of them won't. If you want to know specifically, you can look it up on Goodreads. I'm sure there are lots of spoiler reviews for these books that have in them what kind of ending it has. Or if you want to DM me on Instagram and just say like, hey, is this one an HEA? I'll tell you yes or no, or like it's complicated kind of thing. But I don't want to like unknowingly spoil anyone, because I know for me personally, I hate that. I hate being spoiled. I hate knowing. Okay, so first I want to start with obviously the book that I read the most recently that made me want to like build this whole video around it just so I could talk about it more in depth, because obviously I'll talk about it in my wrap up, but that's not gonna be enough time for me. Where the Mountains Meet the Sea by A.R. Breck. I never buy physical copies as soon as I'm done reading. I like wait until the mood strikes me when I'm like, I want to spend money, and then that's when I buy books. But this one, like through my tears after finishing it, I'm like on Amazon, like order. I needed it. And the formatting, let me see, the formatting in this, stunning formatting. So this one is Luna and Roman's story. So they first meet when they are 6 and 7. Luna's family is living on a lake in Wisconsin, and Roman's family moves into like the house next door. And it's back in the 80s, I think, right? Is it back in the 80s? When they first meet, 1983, when they first meet, and they kind of like bond, they grow up being friends. So the first part of this book, it's told in 3 different parts. And the first part is them following them when they're 6 and 7, and then like in middle school and then high school, and seeing how their relationship grows from like friendship to like love. Then obviously then when they're graduating high school and their dreams are taking them in opposite directions. Roman's father is a successful musician, a big rock star, and he wants to follow in his dad's shoes. He's also in a band, he wants to play music, and he ends up getting a record deal out in LA, where Luna is a ballerina, and she has always dreamed of going to Juilliard and dance, right? Why does that sound wrong? Is it Juilliard? I don't know, a big dance school out in New York City. I would think so. And she wants to be a ballerina, and their landing place is kind of always like New York City. That's what they always talk about. However, things don't go how they are always planning on it, and it follows them. There's a lot of time of them spent apart, a lot of time of them spent together. Their love story is one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking things I've ever read in my entire life. The journey that they each go through individually when they are away from each other is very fun to watch, but it's also so heartbreaking because you see both of them just trying so hard to find love outside of the other person, and just knowing that they're never going to find that, and that they are each other's like true soulmates. This book had me in absolute shambles, and I'm trying to make everyone read this book right now. It is like a new favorite of mine. It is definitely going to be in top 5 of this year. Yeah, Arya, I was so blown away by it, and I don't want to say anything more because I obviously don't want to spoil it, but emotional destruction, emotional damage with this one for sure. Let's see, what did I have next up on my list here? The book that has emotionally destroyed me the most, still probably the most. I still think even more than that one, even though that one is still like, stab me in the heart, heartbreaking. This one has messed me up for years, and that is Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. So this is obviously a very forbidden and taboo book, so it is not going to be for everyone. So this one follows Lachlan and Maya, and they are brother and sister. So yes, I know, trust me, I wasn't expecting to go on this and like love it like I did, but they are, I think, 17 and 18, and they're the 2 oldest siblings to a mother who is just like very absent. She doesn't like care for them that much. She's just not like very emotionally supportive. She's always off with her boyfriend. She doesn't really give them a lot of money, and they are really tasked with raising their 3 younger siblings, and you just see the weight on both of them that it comes with, like being a high school student and being a teenager and having to care for and take care of 3 younger siblings while the mom is just like completely absent. And you just see how their bond like really, sorry, there's a man with his dog pooping. I'm like, like literally right outside my window, and I'm like, can you hear me talking about this book? But the dog's really cute. Anyways, you just really see the bond that these 2 form, and just they are very aware that it is wrong what they are doing, and they try so hard to not give into any of their feelings that they're having for each other, but they just reach the certain point where they can't anymore, and it's just so heartbreaking. I found myself rooting for these 2 so hard, and like questioning my own morals of being like, really, like, am I actually rooting for this? Yes, I was. This book destroyed me. I was a mess after finishing this, and still to this day I think about this book very, very frequently. It's one that's really stuck in my head. I can't say more without giving things away, but yeah. Okay, next. So actually, I talked about this book in my step-sibling romance recommendation video. However, I didn't realize that you still couldn't buy it because Bloom is releasing it. So I am going to talk about it now, but I don't think it's like being re-released until January. So if you don't already like own the paperback or the ebook or something, I do think you have to wait until Bloom re-releases it, because it was originally indie published, and that is Underneath the Sycamore Tree by B. Celeste. She indie published this originally, and then it got picked up by Bloom. So that is re-releasing with a new cover. Yeah, you might have to hold out on reading this if you don't already own it, but when it comes out, I would highly suggest checking it out. So this one follows Caden and Emery, and they are step siblings. Emery has a chronic illness, and she has had a twin sister that also had the same chronic illness, and her twin sister did end up passing away. So now it is just her living with her mother, and she can just see like the grief that is weighing down on her mom, not only from losing one daughter, but then seeing your other remaining daughter go through that, and just kind of seeing like the same things play out in her. And so she decides, I'm gonna go live with my dad, give my mom some space, give her some time to recover, and she goes to move in with her dad that she's never really had much of a relationship with. When she moves in, she meets her new stepmother, who also like chill kind of lady, and then her new stepbrother, who is a year older or the same grade as her. She's like a senior in high school or something. He immediately is just like very angry. He's angry over things that happened with his biological dad and his mom, is not really happy about the new situation, and not happy about the fact that Emery is now moving in with them. He's just like a very angry dude, and him and Emery right away kind of like bump heads, but then the more that he like learns about her and gets to know her, and the more that she learns about him, they begin to bond and they begin to fall in love, and it's amazing. It's very hard to read at certain times, especially certain things about Emery's illness. So with all of these, definitely look up triggers. Like Where the Mountains Meets the Sea gets a little dark. Forbidden, obviously, I mean, yeah. This, dealing with chronic illness, like just make sure that you're looking up any triggers before jumping into these. And like I said, no HEA is guaranteed, and tears probably guaranteed, but it was really beautiful. And then there's also a novella that follows this. It's called All the Shattered Pieces. I can't say anything about that because it would spoil this book, but that again wrecked me. So highly recommend reading All the Shattered Pieces after you finish this. Okay, so this one's a little tricky to talk about, but truly, like, no book has had my like heart in my throat like this one had the entire time that I was reading it. I was so anxious reading this freaking book, and that's Dismount by Lucia Franco, but it is the 5th book in the Off Balance series. It's the last book, so you do have to read them in order. They're all following the same couple. Don't just jump into this one, but I wanted to include it anyways, because truly this is the like one of the best finale books I've read completing the series. This series follows a gymnast and her coach, so very forbidden, age gap, taboo romance. Rhea is the gymnast, and she's really trying to get to to the Olympics, and then Kova is her coach, and he's a former Olympian. And obviously in this book, you have seen her working towards her goal of making it to the Olympics, but so many things have come into their way. And obviously with their relationship being very forbidden, things happen in the 4th book that boil over into here and have like huge ramifications in this book. And not only that, but then also like Rhea's future, and just so many things are so uncertain in this book. And genuinely, when I was reading this was one of the first books that I ever read where I was like, logically, can they have a happy ending? Like, can they get past all of these things? Like, I don't know. And it made me so nervous reading it. I love this book. One of my favorites in the Off Balance series. The growth that these two characters go over throughout the whole entire series too plays a big role in like how they handle certain situations in this. It's just incredible. Like I said, it just had me very, very anxious the whole time I was reading it, and I cried a lot reading this book. Okay, next is another finale book. So I'm not really going to talk about this one too much because it's the 8th book in a fantasy series, and also I know not that many of you love fantasy books. Like, a lot more of you are here for my romance content, which this does have a lot of romance in it, but it is like a fantasy. So I'll keep it kind of brief. But Kingdom of Ash, the final book in the Throne of Glass series, obviously I've reread this book twice, and it's almost 1,000 pages. So, but look how floppy it is. This is one of the like most beautiful books ever because it's just so floppy, but the spine isn't broken. Love. This series just has some of my all-time favorite characters in here. A lot of them, because it is the finale book, there's a lot of war, there's a lot of death, there's a lot of heartbreak, a lot. And I pretty much cried through like the majority of this book. And I literally read this book the first time that I read it, and like I read it in like 2 days. I don't read books that quickly, but I couldn't put this down, and it truly just had me so emotional. Even at the happy points, I was super emotional because of what it took to get to those happy points, and to include it. I know not a lot of you are going to pick up the Throne of Glass series, but okay, I need to put it down because otherwise I will just start rereading those little parts that I have highlighted. Okay, next up, The Confidence of Wildflowers by Macaulay S. Meltzer. So this one is a new release this year. It is a duet, but I'm only putting the first book on here because this one is the one that emotionally destroyed me. So this one follows Salem and Thayer, and it's an age gap, grumpy sunshine, next door neighbor kind of deal. So Salem and her mother live in this house, and Salem is she's graduated high school, but she doesn't really want to like leave her town. She doesn't really want to go to college. She doesn't really know what she wants to do. And one day, a new neighbor moves in next door who is Thayer, and he is a single dad, and he moves in with his son as he's getting a divorce, or he is divorced, and he's just grumpy, and immediately like they kind of start up like a little bit of a banter, and they eventually get together, and things go from there. So this all sounds like nice and fun and light, right? Yeah, that's how it was going until about like the 70 or 80% mark in this book. And then something happened, and I was like, holy, what just happened? What just happened? And I was sobbing. I was absolutely sobbing about it. This one's kind of tricky because the thing in this one, what happened was not listed in the trigger warnings, and it should have been, but it's also a spoiler. So I know people have like spoiled it now in their Goodreads review, so you can definitely like find what happens. I'm not going to explicitly say for those of you who don't like really have any triggers and want to go in like fully unspoiled. I definitely see how some people were angry that this was not advertised in here. For me personally, I liked it because I really liked the surprise of it, but it was shocking and it absolutely wrecked me. And you can find in Goodreads reviews what happened, or like I said, if you like have triggers that like potentially you think might be a thing in here, let me know and I can like confirm or just let you know what it is in general. I was absolutely shocked and wrecked. Okay, and another one, which I have a full reading vlog reading this trilogy, and again, I'm not really actually going to say anything about it, but that is Exodus and the Finish Line, the second and third books in the Ravenhood trilogy. This one, sobbing. And this one, so this one is objectively the most sad, but this one, again, just like so many times, it was just like heartbreaking to see certain things happen to Cecilia. Like things that it's like I felt personally betrayed on her behalf. Like I felt like people were betraying me when they were like betraying her. And these had me so messed up for like so long. I'm very happy that I wasn't spoiled for it as well. But like the famous quote, like, we love rainy days, don't we, baby? kill me. Okay, next up, I'm just gonna like quickly go over all these. I think everyone has like heard of these at some point or another. But 4 Colleen Hoover books, not surprising, but these are the 4 that have all had me in ruins as I've read them. It Ends With Us was the first one. This one, when the twist happened, I was legitimately shocked, so angry, so sad, so heartbroken. All Your Perfects. This one, it's a marriage in trouble romance, and I genuinely, okay, so here's the thing. This book in no way, shape, or form like relates to my personal life, but I felt like so invested in, what was her name? Quinn. In Quinn's story, and like her getting everything that she wanted, and then there's something that happens, and genuinely I was like, it was at the end of the chapter, and I was like thinking that it was probably going to be said then, and I like didn't want to keep reading because I was like, if what happens is going to happen, like I don't want to read those words, I don't want to know. And it did happen, and it was like knife to the heart. Ugly Love, I ugly cried. If you know, you know. And Reminders of Him. This one is the one that I read most recently, and again, shattered. Definitely, I'd say most of these, maybe not Ugly Love, but I'd say otherwise most of these err more on the side of women's fiction. I'd say Ugly Love is maybe the one that's like most romancy, but all made me cry. All had me in tears. Okay, next is Sweet Dandelion by Macaulay Smeltzer. So this one I've talked about over and over and over again. It's an age gap student teacher forbidden romance. So Danny was in a school shooting at her old school where she was shot and injured, and her mother was shot and killed. And now she is living with her older brother to finish out her senior year. She took a year off to rehab, and now she's in her senior year just trying to finish up college and try to figure out how to like move on with her life when she doesn't really know how to do so. And at this new school, she meets with a guidance counselor every day who is Lachlan, and they have to work through, she has to work through her trauma, but with the help of him. And this book, the mental health journey in it is what really got me with this one and had me in a chokehold. Especially there is a part in here, it's not like a spoiler really, but there's a part where there's another school shooting at like a school a couple of counties over. And obviously like students at the school hear about it, and seeing Danny like spiral into a panic attack and seeing Lachlan be there for her. I cried a lot throughout this book. This book more just like had my, like it was more just like I had a lump in my throat while reading it the whole time and just seeing Danny work through things. I love this book with my whole heart and soul. Not necessarily the most like sad on this list. I think it was just like me personally. I felt like so personally impacted and connected to this book and to this character. Okay. Oh, I didn't bring it in here. I own this one, but I'm too lazy to go and get it. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this one follows Evelyn Hugo, who was a huge Hollywood icon, and she's doing an interview towards like the end of her life. She's like what, in her 70s or 80s or something, and now she's doing an interview about her whole entire life story and telling the story of her 7 husbands that she has had over the course of her life. And it, once again, this book at the end, like, had me crying and crying and crying. But the whole time, too, I just really loved Evelyn's story. Like, I wouldn't say this book overall is, like, sad as you're reading it. It more is, it's kind of sad when you look back on it and, like, reflect of all the years that she kind of, like, missed out on with certain things, which, like, I won't say because that would spoil it. But once again, had me in emotional tatters. Okay, I hate this book. I'm gonna include it anyways, because actually we were just talking about this on a live recently. Why were we talking about it? I don't know. But After the Fall by Gianna Darling, it is the 4th book in the Fallen Men series, and it is the 2nd book with King and Cress's story in it. And you can't skip it. Like, those books, I think you can read them as standalones, but like I would personally never advise to read them as standalones. And when I was reading the series, I actually wanted to skip this book because I didn't care for King and Cress that much, but people were like, no, you have to read it. It has a huge event in it that like plays out afterwards. And I did read it, and I was destroyed. I was absolutely destroyed, and I was loving it, and I was vibing, and I was so happy that I was sobbing. And then something happens in it, and I was like, this is bull. So I personally hate this book. It's the only book in the Fallen Men series that I do not own because it just like makes me angry. You know what, I will just say it emotionally destroyed me. So if you're reading the Fallen Men series, just know that when you get to this one, like, you do have to read it, and it will make you cry most likely. And I mean, other people are happy by it. I know other people are, but here's the thing, I'm ruthless. I want pain. I want maximum pain, and this annoyed me. So I can't really say more without saying spoilers, and I've already had like a spoilery rant on this book before in like another video somewhere. It did at the time destroy me when I was reading it. Okay, next up, Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. So this one is a sister's fiance, enemies to lovers, dark romance. So Cora and Dean, so Dean is Cora's sister's fiance, and they are at a bar one night celebrating something, and everyone goes home but Cora ends up staying. But then when she needs a ride home from the bar later, no one's answering their phone, and Dean is the only one who will come and pick her up. So she calls up Dean, he comes and he picks her up to drive her home, and when they are on their way home, they're run off the road and they're kidnapped by a serial killer and kept in his basement. The time spent in that basement is so freaking dark, and seeing the bond that is formed between the two of them in there is beautiful but horrible. And then seeing when they are out and in the outside world and how they are trying to move on, but they are both so like emotionally scarred from this experience. That's what really got me. Like the During the Basement was like, oh, like it was hard to read because it's very dark. But then when they were out, the out journey is what got me more and like had me crying because of certain things that, especially like Cora's character, really struggled on the outside, and that was just very hard to read. But I do love seeing a character be at like the bottom of the bottom and then find their happiness, and that's what you see throughout this book. Okay, should I stop there? I have more on this list, but honestly they're not necessarily like even like recommendations. Did this turn into a recommendation video? I don't even know, but I have more, but it's kind of like those are just like random ones that made me cry. They're not really like, I don't know, recs. Although I did not pull all the books for this either. You know what, just I'll rapid fire them really quickly. The other ones that I have on here: Allegiant by Veronica Roth, one of the first books that destroyed me, but I absolutely love it, and I'm still a stan for this book till the day I die, and I will defend it. Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. This one had me in ruins when I was in like middle school or like freshman in high school. I read this on vacation with my family and I was so unwell. So thanks Suzanne for that. And I just rewatched Mockingjay. Like I rewatch all the Hunger Games every single November, and I just rewatched them over the weekend, and Mockingjay Part 2 once again just had me sobbing. What else did I have? Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Greek mythology of Achilles and I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't even remember. Patroclus? I definitely didn't say that right. But again, had me in tears. Crescent City by Sergio Mas. The ending of this, I can't say anything without spoilers, but I will just say that Bryce makes a phone call to one of our characters in this when she is like, and just thanks him for certain things. And I could like cry thinking about it. But yeah, can't say anything because of spoilers. And then also, of course, Court of Mist and Fury by Sergio Mas, second book in the ACOTAR series. Again, love seeing a character at the bottom of the bottom and finding their happiness, and it made me cry along the way. So that's it for this video of books that emotionally destroyed me. I hope if you pick one up, just beware, no happy endings guaranteed here. Probably tears guaranteed. So anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will be back on Friday with another romance recommendation video of a trope that like I feel like everyone kind of loves. Well, not everyone, but I feel like most people that watch my channel love. So anyways, that's it for today, and I will see you when I see ya.